Hi, I'm Jon San Paolo here in Studio A at Electrical Audio here in Chicago, Illinois, and today I'm going to show you what we look for as we strike the drums. So what I'd like to go over with you today is what we do while we tear down our drums at the end of a tracking session. It doesn't take much time, it's fairly easy to do, very helpful in the future, and the more you do it, the quicker it becomes second nature. It's good practice to do this during setup as well. If you get an opportunity, go ahead and ask the session drummer if they noticed anything while they were playing so you can get a head start on anything that might need some attention. It'll also help so you don't bum out the next drummer on the next session. If you can, go ahead and address the parts that need addressing now, because it's way easier to do that, obviously, than come back to it later. But at the very worst case, just set it aside and then give it your attention just as soon as you have a free moment. Okay. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to check are hi-hat and cymbal stands. First thing to do, go ahead and pull the cymbal off each stand and check for cracks. Let me give you an example. Here's one of a crack going along the grain. This one is exaggerated, so hopefully you'll be able to catch it sooner. Just look for a little micro version of this kind of travel path as you go. Here's an example of an edge crack, or what happens after the edge crack goes too far. See, it starts down here and it just creeps and 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 creeps, and pretty soon it chips away entire pieces of the cymbal. They're not really, so you want to try and catch that early on. There's one more thing you want to check when examining your cymbals. While inspecting them, check the bell for what's called keyholing. Normally, the hole in the bell has a circular shape. If your sleeves are worn down or not on your stand at all, the metal-to-metal contact and increasing swiveling of the cymbal against the metal can change the shape from a circle to a kind of a teardrop shape, which is not a good thing and avoidable if you can avoid it at all costs. The thing you want to check to make sure that keyholing doesn't happen is the cymbal sleeve. It's nylon or plastic. Basically, you're just checking to make sure that it doesn't get worn down too far or that it hasn't already worn down and that the metal is exposed when it's resting on the cymbal stand. You're also just checking the rest of the stand as you go. Just make sure the felts are the right size, that the hi-hat felts didn't get put on a cymbal stand or vice versa, that all your parts are here. That when you're screwing and unscrewing any mechanical part, wing nuts or these tech lock arms or whatever, that everything is able to travel freely. Any locking or tightening mechanism is locking or unlocking without you having to fight them. The telescoping parts are moving without you having to do a whole lot of work or fighting them. It's just going through the stand and just making sure every little part is doing what it's supposed to be doing. And then, of course, with the legs and feet of the cymbal stand, you just want to make sure that they're traveling freely and that the wing nut locks them in place like it's supposed to be. With a hi-hat stand, it's more or less the same thing. You're basically going to peel the cymbals off, check them for cracks and keyholing. Something new, the hi-hat has a pedal that you want to basically check and make sure that the chain is in good working order, that it doesn't look like it's too dried out. Otherwise, you might need to lubricate the chain a little bit. The travel of the rod is free and without grinding or any extra friction. And then the rest is just making sure that felts are here and are the right size. And again, all the traveling parts are doing what they're supposed to do. All the nuts are locking down as they're supposed to, etc. I don't want to get too into the weeds about this because clutches are all a little different depending upon what brand you go with. But they're all generally made the same way. There's going to be a nut or two above where the hi-hat cymbal is placed, and then there's going to be one or two below and some felts in between. So really all I'm going to do is take apart one or two of these nuts just so that I can see what's going on and that I can just tell that the threading hasn't been compromised. This is traveling freely and easily, so I feel pretty good about that. I'm just checking the felts, again, just to make sure the wrong thing didn't get put on the hi-hat stand. Sometimes there's threading across this entire section. In the case of this one, it's actually just bare metal that's unthreaded because that's where the cymbal is going to be moving back and forth across. Again, metal to metal contact This might wear down over time, so you want to make sure that the clutch is in good shape and isn't slowly getting, ground to a nub, basically. That's the main thing I'm checking. The only other thing that I'm doing is just making sure that this wing nut is moving freely. And the idea is that we can just put it on the hi-hat stand and just make sure that it grips. Then it's easy to take on, to put on, and easy to take off, just like that. It's the thing people hit, whatever. So with the drums themselves, the first thing you want to check are the heads. Are they smooth? Are they playable? Or are they... Well, if they are a little pitted, you might be able to still get some life out of them. We've got a video for that. Other things that you want to check for, just make sure none of the lugs have backed out and disappeared, especially on these bottom heads and especially on the snare drum. It's easy for those to get clobbered so often during the session that they back out and they fall on the floor. If you find you're missing one, it's likely within a couple inches of directly below whatever drum it's missing from. The next thing we want to check are the arms of each tom to make sure that both the part that they're mounted to and the actual drum mounting to the arm are able to be done easily and without a lot of aggravation. And then there's the floor tom. You just want to check the legs for the same thing. Smooth, easy, fluid movements. You don't want to be caught fighting with them. And with the bass drum, same sort of thing. You're going to check to make sure you've got all your lugs on both sides. And while you're at it, let's check these spurs. They're going to be different from brand to brand and drum to drum. You just want to make sure that you're able to tighten and loosen the connections and that you're able to stow the spurs away easily. Flip it over one more time. And check the batter side where the beater connects with the head and just make sure it hasn't been dented or even punctured or broken. We usually have patches or flam slams or what have you that we put on here, so these usually last quite a long time, but still worth checking them routinely. Hello, buddy, what do you want for Christmas? Next, time to check the snare drum. Same thing, check the lugs, especially on the snare drum because they take a lot of wax while being played in session. Just make sure that none of the parts have loosened up and are about to disappear or have recently disappeared, and if so, check the floor. More importantly, check the underside of the snare drum. It doesn't get a lot of attention otherwise. Same sort of thing, check to make sure these lugs are here. You want to check the throw to make sure that you're able to loosen and tighten the snares easily. That's so fluid and so nice. You want to check to make sure that whatever is connecting your snares to your throw and to your drum are in good working order. These don't look like they're going to wear down anytime soon. Check the snares themselves. Every once in a while, one of these snares might pop off. You want to handle that as best you can. You can either replace the snares immediately, or if you need to carry on with the session and you don't have spares, you can actually clip the snare that's popped out. But make sure that before you clip it, that you've bent the snare away from the resonant side head so that it doesn't risk puncturing it later. Speaking of puncturing the heads, just make sure that the actual snares resting against the head haven't tried to dig their way in, because that will also start to put dents and punctures in your head. If it's dented, once again, we've got a video for that. Same thing basically as all the other hardware we've checked out so far. Just if there are moving parts, make sure that they're moving the way they're supposed to. Any types of nuts, bolts, screws, that they're doing what they're supposed to. The travel's good for any telescoping parts or the legs and feet, that kind of thing. And then moving on to the throne. First thing, give the seat a good visual inspection. You just want to make sure the fabric hasn't torn or split just yet, and it's in cosmetically good condition. As far as if you have a corkscrew type throne, you just want to make sure that it'll travel both up and down without giving you a lot of fuss. The rest is just check your mechanical connections, make sure everything travels that it's supposed to. And when you're done, go ahead and wipe it down with a damp cloth. We try and do it once per session. Pedals are going to be drastically different in terms of all the little like set screws and weird nooks and crannies throughout. So get comfortable with your pedal before your session starts so that you know what you're going to be looking for to make sure that all the set screws and oddball things are accounted for. Some things that are going to be common from pedal to pedal are going to be this clamp that clamps onto the rim of the bass drum. Sometimes there's a screw right here or a wing nut or something. Ours is actually way off to the side, so you just want to test it to make sure it's working correctly. This one's giving me a little resistance, so I'm going to oil it up in a minute. Here at Electrical, when we need to use oil, we typically use turbine oil, and we've had a lot of good luck with it so far. Other things that you want to check, the spring, just that it's connected properly, that it doesn't look worn where it connects to the pedal on either side, that all the fasteners are where they're supposed to be. Make sure that the beater itself is in good shape, that the shaft is still straight, and that there's still plenty of felt left on the material, on the beater. And also make sure and check the chain to make sure there's enough lubrication, whether it's grease or oil, whatever it is you use. Last thing to do is just drop it on the floor and try it out and make sure it feels comfortable. It's a really good idea to have spares of all your most commonly used and commonly worn down parts ready to go so that when you start servicing your drums and hardware, you've got everything you need. Here at Electrical, we have cymbal sleeves, felts of assorted sizes and stiffnesses, hi-hat clutches, wing nuts, 13 and 14-inch snare strands, beaters, and lugs and washers of all shapes and sizes. That's it. Thanks, and see you next time.